Yes. Good evening to the LinkedIn family, to all of you, and a warm welcome to this talk show titled Heart to Heart with Shanker Viswanath, in which I will be inviting guests and having a heart to heart conversation with them on their area of expertise with an aim to help everyone understand their subject matter better in a simple and effective manner. My name is Shanker Viswanath. I'm a performance enhancement specialist. I work with ambitious, growth minded leaders and help them manage and achieve their full potential and grow faster so that they can live a quality of life they know they deserve. Today, we have with us in our studio Tarakad Giridhar, alias Giri, and Krishna Iyer, aka Krish, the authors of the four-part article series titled Loss of Relevance, which I have been posting every Friday for the past 3 weeks, and I shall be posting the fourth part as well this ensuing Friday on 20th of August 2021. Thank you all, first of all, for showering your love and appreciation on the article series, and a request not to forget to read the fourth part as well. So, before we get into the conversation, let me introduce Giri and Krish as they call themselves. Giri started his career as a chemical engineer designing industrial environmental protection systems. But then he says he has thereafter had a eclectic mix of experiences in his career as an international trade and investment specialist, a business strategy advisor, and is now mentoring small CEOs, small business CEOs and MDs. And he says he's very passionate about getting these leaders to unlearn and relearn. Welcome, Giri.
Nice to be on your show, Shankar, and hello to all.
Thank you, Giri. The next guest is Krish. Krish is a graduate in mathematics and computer science, as well as he's trained in cybersecurity and governance and board level leadership. He follows what he calls the 3I mantra for success. The 3 I's being innovation, keeping it simple yet effective and secure, integrity, the ability to say no and be transparent, and impact, creating a positive impact for humans and community. He believes in being straightforward and engaging in a straight talk. Welcome, Krish. Absolute pleasure to have you here.
Hi Shankar, hi Giri, hello everyone. Thank you Shankar for good to be on your show.
Thank you, the both. Thank you to the two of you for accepting my invitation. Now, before we get into the conversation, I would also like to tell the viewers that if you have any comments, any questions that you would like to ask, feel free to put in the comment section, and I will take it time permitting, and the speakers will answer it then and there, or I will take it towards the end and the speakers will answer that. So let's get started. So tell me, Krish and Giri, what is the secret fact that you have got into, I hear, in doing articles like the loss of revenue? I'm throwing a googly at you to begin with.
So, well, it is no longer a secret fact now that you have let the cat out of the bag. Giri and I, we have never looked at it as a fact, but we certainly agreed that we could build on our friendship during the pandemic by exploring new ways to stay connected. And co-authoring articles seemed to be one way to, which was exciting and challenging for both of us. So I have to thank Giri for working with me during the pandemic. And yeah, we both have enjoyed. Thank you.
Actually, in fact, all that we agreed upon was that, we'll try to experiment with a cauldron of stray ideas just because we wanted to, stay connected and to, see how far the relevance of our friendship continues. And co-authoring seemed to be a possible solution. So we thought, why not experiment it?
Hmm. So you're saying that it's not a fact. Okay, then what motivates you to write something like this?
Just the fact that we could hang out uh, on a remote basis outside of the WhatsApp and Twitter and other social media traffic.
Super. Krish, your take?
Yeah, yes. First, let me say hi to Chandra from Melbourne. He's logged in. You remember Chandra? He's one of my dearest friends. Thank you, Chandra, for coming on board. And the fact that, as Giri said, taking it from there, we believe that around 30 to 35 years of our corporate career, we have gained some good insights into why systems and people and corporates fail or succeed. So we thought, why not share these with the others and also enable them to, think differently and provoke them in their thinking. That was the idea.
Hmm. And how has been this whole collaboration process? What has it been to collaborate like this?
It's an experiment, and from deciding on a theme where we believe we could contribute, and to structuring a framework, and then agreeing to who among us picks up which area and contributes, and how to also introduce some humor into it to make it interesting, get some pictures out there. Yeah, that was the whole idea, to make it interesting and
Very nice.
fun.
And I really agree with that. Actually, we're still both experimenting and trying to learn the ropes of co-authoring.
Experimenting and trying to learn the ropes of co-authoring. All right, I'm sure our audience wants to listen more and know more about the four-part series. What is it all about? Interestingly, I find that you've titled the first part of the article as Clearing the Fog. Now, why are we suddenly talking about relevance now? What what does it mean to clear the fog, or what do you mean when you refer to the fog?
So, we, currently, given the pandemic time, and got us to really reflect on this topic of relevance. And the world, as we know, is literally being, it's turned topsy turvy. There are a lot of uncertainties that have crept up. Some of us have lost our loved ones, and some have lost their livelihoods. Some are not sure about their children's future, and some service categories in some of the industries have just gone. There is no more a role for them, and many many low paid and easily replaceable you know services. Out of that, some have become essential, some can be easily replaced.
Right.
Likewise, whole industry segments, if you take this travel and hospitality sector, and where contact was very essential, those have just moved away to another dimension in the digital world. New work routines, health and safety routines have fallen in place. So, individuals and organizations are confused. What are the normal reference points now, and how do they traverse this? It is like so it's like a dense fog that is suddenly descended, and you are there. There are no signposts, and you have the fog, and you still want to find your way. So without signpost and a fog, how do you go about it? That's why we thought, let's calling it as clearing the fog.
Hmm. So if I understand correctly, then this you are using this fog as an analogy for both the extreme challenge of losing relevance as well as the outcome of such an event. Very interesting approach, I must say, to the subject. So, are you seeing some new unmanageable challenges that are emerging?
I think so. Yes, Shankar. Certainly, new challenges are emerging, but I wouldn't go to the extent of calling them unmanageable. And let me explain why I think so. Think of some four sets of examples that I want to use in order to give you the explanation.
Hmm.
You've all heard about the Great Depression of 1929.
Correct.
We've also heard about the Lehman and the recent financial crisis of 2008. Or let's take another set of examples, the tulip mania, the bubonic plague of 1637, And then we have the current COVID-19 pandemic. One more set of examples that I want to use is about the OPEC oil crisis of 1973,
Mm.
vis-a-vis the climate change crisis that we are currently undergoing. And last but certainly not this insignificant set of example is the one on the invention of the steam engine, how it has
Mm.
impacted industrial manufacturing as against the invention of the World Wide Web. If you look at all these four examples, you can see the similarities and the contrast. They become quite evident.
Yes.
And the fresh perspective that we wanted to bring out, even as we analyze these four examples, is that while the earlier sets, which means if we are going to talk about the Great Depression of 1929, the bubonic plague, or the steam engine, all of those earlier events, be they crisis or just game changing events,
Correct.
they all occurred in a sufficiently elongated period of time, and also at a time when the socioeconomic systems were not so closely connected.
Connected.
And
Absolutely.
that's the contrast now. Today's game changing events or today's crisis, they all are happening in a crowded time horizon, and all socioeconomic systems are so closely interlinked, which means that relevance or the loss of relevance, that is an impact of these things, have to be looked at it from a different perspective and using some different approach. And that's where we have tried to attempt this. Krish, anything you wanted to add?
As you rightly said, it is these challenges are still manageable, and not all hope needs to be lost. So yeah, it is. What Giri says is very true.
Very nice. So you're saying that these are manageable, and yet one needs to look at them as emerging challenges and as being different from the earlier challenges. So are you also suggesting that one prepares in a different way to face them?
Yes, of course, because we have not seen anything like this, at least in our lifetimes, right?
Mm.
So it is different, and we don't have a precedent to look up to except something that has happened 100 years ago. And so, so it boils down to understanding and identifying those aspects of relevance
Mm.
that are being subject to potential impacts from these challenges. What is the impact? And to help us understand and identify such aspects. So we have devoted our attention to the types and complexities of the relevance in the part 2 of the article. Let me also take a moment here and again welcome all those who have joined the show. It'll help if you put your name and just say hi so we know who all are there. And if you have anything to ask, please feel free to ask us.
Yeah,
Over to you,
and
Shankar.
I think there are some of the participants are saying that they're not able to see the studio and the three of us.
Oh,
So
is it?
we may have to see if the settings are
Can we
okay.
just take a pause and Shankar, can you check?
Uh,
And
I
the,
can
the
see I
the
am
audio
live.
the audio is not. It seems
Audio
video
is
and
not
audio. No, video and the audio. It seems.
Both
uh-huh.
are not.
Because I can see ourselves live here,
Hmm.
and I can see the three of us, and there was one chat message which came. So I
Okay,
thought that we are visible as of now.
let's let's
Probably
take a spot.
it could be some of their settings. That's it.
It
Let's
could
take
be.
a spot check among those who have logged in. Can we have a quick? Are you able to see us and hear us?
Probably they could just send a comment on the chat
Yes.
instead.
If
Yes,
you are able
yes.
to hear us and see us, please put in the comment section. Yeah,
Hey,
I'm seeing.
Sunil.
Hey Sunil, are you able to see us and hear us as well clearly? Hi Sunil. Yeah, I can see the three of you as well as here. So it could be some
Perfect.
problem
It could be some.
at the
Great.
other end.
Okay, so
So yes, we'll
let's
continue.
Let's
continue.
Yes,
continue.
please.
Yeah.
So So I think, yeah, as Shankar, what Krish was trying to explain about, that the types and complexities. If
Mm.
I were to take you back to one of the examples that we alluded to in the introductory chapter, this
Right,
was on the fall of the great Mauryan Empire. You
right.
know, talking about relevance, we can always make an attempt to look at what sort of preparations they could have probably done
Right.
so that their relevance could have continued for a few more centuries, if not
Mm.
for eternity, at least for a few more centuries. But then that would need, as Krish just mentioned, understanding what was their relevance to some of their stakeholders, what were the complexities in such a relationships between them and their stakeholders that
Right.
were being introduced because of various events. So the preparations have a lot to do with how we understand it. And in part 3 of the series, which you had just published last Friday, we have
Yes.
tried to make a brief analysis of such a thing.
Very nice. So, from what you have explained to me, the two of you till now, it looks like relevance as a simple concept of having a meaningful linkages between two entities seems to be more complex. So, as a natural fallout, I am asking this question: are there different types of relevances? Are they dependent? Are they independent? How does it work?
Surely, Shankar, I think you have hit the nail on the head that there are these sort of characteristics when you mention relevance. Actually, to Krish and me, it really surprised us when we started writing on this topic that a simple term such as relevance could have intrinsically so many complexities
Hmm.
inside of it. And in fact, it was more of a serendipitous, lucky find for us. One day we were just discussing about, what happens to the digital assets of a person once the person dies, what
Hmm.
happens to his blogs, what happens to his Facebook profiles, you know, and there we started, looking at it, and then we tripped across a number of scholarly articles which were talking about how is society going to deal with the adequacy and the relevance of these issues themselves.
Right.
And the more we read that, it was just a matter of connecting the dots. We could see that, well, these are not two different things. When we are talking of relevance, essentially we are also looking at, some of these issues. So how do we connect the dots? Therefore, it became a natural, thing of looking at it. And that is how, these things, started flowing into a sort of a pattern. Krish, if we can expand on how we went about.
Sure. So, yeah, that article, as he says, we hit upon that, and it was quite thought provoking. And I mean, people have put years of their content, their pictures, their experiences, their moments on all this social media. So, what happens when you go away? Who actually owns them, right?
Hmm.
And what do you do with it? How do you manage these assets? Uh, so, from there, we started digging deeper, and in our exploration, we were able to identify four different types of relevances which are highly interconnected, all four. The loss of relevance, one is at a personal level, individual. Second is at a professional level. Okay.
Hmm.
Third is at a functional level, and the fourth is at a more larger society or a community level. We found that these were four very identifiable types of relevances which a human being has in its existence.
Hmm. Hmm.
And understanding these is further compounded by the complexity when the change is happening in an unstable environment. One is the change. Second is
Correct.
the whole environment itself is not stable. So there are multiple changes at play here.
Hmm.
And commonly, I think people have been using this term quite often now. It's in a VUCA world. We thought we have all landed right in the middle of truly a VUCA universe.
Right.
Giri,
And if
if
I
you wish
if I
to.
may just if I may just add to what Krish has outlined, you know, going back to another, example that we introduced in part two, where we talked about an adoption come orphanage agency, which was created by a philanthropic businessman run by his family. You know, if we look at it, what are the complexities that can create a lot of challenges in terms of relevance to both the organization as well as to its stakeholders. These
Correct.
can come about in a number of ways. They could be because there are regulatory changes, which say that that only qualified, trained, support staff can be employed. Or it
Mm.
could be that the organization should not be using religious preferences as a basis for deciding who their partners, vendors, prospective adopters can be. Or it could just be that there is simply in society itself a change in religious screening practices.
Right.
So each of these can create uncertainties in the relationship between the organization and its stakeholders.
Correct.
Actually, this is a sort of a VUCA environment for the
Absolutely.
orphanage itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a very good example that you gave, Giri. Before we proceed, if viewers, if you have anything to ask the speakers, you may type in there and I can take that question before I proceed. If anything you want to ask, any of you who have logged in, you may do so and I can take that question and then move ahead. Okay, so while we wait, yes, as I said, that's a good illustration, and we all understand that we are living in a VUCA world, as Krish said, and you elaborated on that. Now, are there any specific pitfalls one needs to avoid then in such a situation?
Okay, I'll pick that up. But before that, I just see a very interesting question a user has asked. Unfortunately, I'm not able to see the name. When
And
someone
if you click
loses,
on it, will come on the screen itself for us. When someone loses all the four relevances, how do you describe that situation? Who has put this? If you could put your name, it would be great. But wonderful. Thank you for asking that question. He is open to the two of you if you want to take it up.
sure. So I think it is almost like having no identity, isn't it? No personal identity or no professional identity, no functional organizational, no community identity. So that's a pretty tough situation. And yeah, but there can be two sides to defining it. It's almost like a what do you call that? A hopeless kind of situation. What do you do? At the same time, I would say that for somebody who looks at it as a challenge, it could also be an opportunity to reinvent oneself. So yeah, great question, Sunil. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunil, for asking that. Giri, you want to say something?
Just the only thing that I wanted to say was, in fact, a lot of us think that losing one type of relevance is only losing that type of relevance. My take is that if you believe that you're losing your relevance even in one area, you're actually losing your relevance in all the four areas. That's
There is
the
an impact.
implicit that is already there.
Hmm.
Hmm.
There is an impact which kind of overlaps into the other areas, isn't it, Giri?
Very nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Very nice. So again, so if we continue from there, then we say that there is an impact, and yes, we are living in a VUCA world currently. So what kind of pitfalls should we avoid then in such situations?
Okay. So interestingly, there are two ways to look at your question, Shankar. One is, can we avoid or mitigate VUCA situations? Do we have any control in this sense? The other is, what are the specific pitfalls to watch out for?
Hmm.
So VUCA situations, I mean, they occur, right? They are not self-imposed. They just occur. It's not in our control at all, and they usually lead to crisis situations where one starts worrying about the loss of relevance.
Correct.
So in parts 2 and 3, we have attempted to explain what could be the specific contributing pitfalls. What could they be? And we have in our research that there could be more, but we have identified them as 3 gaps and their impacts. One is gap at a leadership level in these situations. idea level. You don't know what to do because there is no precedent, and you're waiting for somebody else to attempt how to solve it. So idea gaps. And third is process or methods, because it has not been solved before. So, how do you put together a method to it or a process to it? And one or more of these or a combination can contribute to losing relevance. And let me take up your point about the general understanding that we are all currently living in a VUCA world. And why do we feel so? So, obvious questions. Is there volatility? Seems so, right? Changes due to COVID are taking place at a very dramatic and fast pace. The
Correct.
speed with which the second wave hit us was absolutely very, very, dramatic and crazy for people to
Correct.
loss of oxygen, not being available at all. I mean, nobody thought oxygen is not going to be available.
Correct.
Is there uncertainty? Absolutely, yes. I know nobody can predict. I mean, we came up with the A variant and then the B and C, and now it is Delta, and now it is Delta plus, and it's all happening at a very fast pace, leading to a lot of uncertainty.
Correct.
Uh, is there complexity? Definitely, there looks like it is complex. It has impacted so many areas: healthcare, business, economy, social life in many complex ways.
Correct.
And ambiguity, yes, because there is no best practice or there is no specific way to manage.
Correct.
The way it is occurring in different parts of the world, that itself is different. Although it's even we are calling it as a variant, the way it is manifesting itself is different. So there is a lot of ambiguity. And if you go back to the three pitfalls, you can see that these gaps exacerbate that feeling of helplessness.
Mm.
And really, if what we are trying to explain in parts 2 and 3 is that these three gaps that Krish just mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
they are a result of a inflexible and a risk averse approach,
Mm.
which is leading to over dependence on well entrenched quantitative analysis rather than an intuitive approach. Let me try to explain a little bit on this, basically to emphasize that complexity part and how the three pitfalls acquire significance under this
Right.
complexity.
Right.
We started in our first introductory part by saying by referring to the Kodak example. A lot of commentators have written about the Kodak uh, case, uh, published. There are lots of publications on this. But
Right.
if we start analyzing the same thing from these three pitfalls that Krish just mentioned, the leadership, the ideas, and the methods graph,
Correct.
Kodak actually were depending a lot and over focusing on their existing business model, their profit model, like an ostrich whose head is inside the sand.
Mm.
They believed that only films and film development was the right way.
Right.
In fact, one of their own employees invented the digital camera, but they put that invention inside their closet,
Mm.
believing that the world is not ready for such digital innovations.
Mm.
Okay, this is primarily a, an example of a leadership and an ideas gap in an organization.
Mm.
Again, if I were to go back to my own personal preference of using the Mauryan dynasties example,
Right.
let's
Right.
let's think a little bit more. I would
Mm.
even go to the extent of saying that even the great Emperor Asoka failed in a leadership you know aspect, because he has not looked at the impact of how his decision to ban animal sacrifices, because he became a Buddhist, was affecting a very powerful stakeholder community, which were the Brahmins. Their livelihood and their wealth, their gain of wealth, was because the rulers were doing a lot of rituals which required animal sacrifices. Every time they did an animal sacrifice, they used to give a lot of wealth, land, to the Brahmins.
Right.
So, for a powerful stakeholder community, there was uncertainty in the livelihood.
Right.
Or the Mauryan Empire itself was the first brave, unique experiment in centralized way of administering, a country. It was a unifying way, and that brought a lot of central administrative bureaucracy into the Mauryan way of administration.
Mm.
That led to a lot of complexities and uncertainties and ambiguities in the local chieftain communities. They were not able to relate. So if you look at it, these are gaps in leaderships, these are gaps in ideas, these are
Correct.
gaps in processes, all of
Correct.
which led to the downfall. But they were also the ones that were not able to deal with VUCA situations then.
Correct. Correct. Very nice. That clarifies a lot. Thanks. Thanks for that explanation. Before we go ahead, again, a request to the audience. If you have any questions, you may please ask. We'll try and take it right now. Otherwise, we'll take it towards the end of the program. If you have any questions, please do ask. Yes, that clarifies a lot, Giri and Krish. And now that we've understood relevance and that there are different types and there are specific pitfalls that one needs to avoid in order to remain relevant, have you also suggested in your article any specific framework or an approach that can be followed in order to remain relevant?
So, so far our research has got what it has brought us to is we've been able to identify a very simple kind of approach. I would not, it is not a very elaborate framework and it is not a magic wand, but it's about
Mhm.
a simple three-step approach that can help us address and manage and avoid to an extent the loss of relevance. So one is about throwing out and identifying and throwing out the outdated. That it is not, you don't need it, so pushing it away, throwing it out. Second, once you identify that it is not relevant, not getting stuck to it, so pushing that out.
Okay.
And experiences that don't really yield much, which doesn't lead to any specific outcomes, or you cannot derive any learnings from it, to move it away and start boldly experimenting with fresh ones. And to sum it up, it's about unlearning and relearning. Any new learning also requires you to shed the old baggage and unlearn and then relearn. So I think that's a continuous process, and especially in the current situation, it has a lot of relevance, unlearning and learning.
Yes, unlearning and relearning viewers has a lot of relevance in the current situation. You both seem to have whetted the appetite of the readers in this first series. So, what do we expect going forward? What are the other themes that you're working on, if I may ask?
We are working on 7 or 8 different themes, and we are still in the process of putting our finger on which one to go with. Uh, One of the themes is a kind of a fantasy theme which looks ahead 100 years ahead of time and
Okay.
creates a situation. And both of us are two funny characters in that. We have put ourselves into that as characters at that point in time. So that's a kind of a theme. But yeah, we still haven't uh, uh, made up our mind, what exactly to go with. Giri, you want to reveal something more?
Well, you've introduced. It's still very early days, Shankar. We are still trying to, come to a sort of an understanding about, in terms of the ideation itself, and then
Right.
on the structure. As Krish mentioned, it's about thinking in the future as to how those CEOs, those leaders are going to think about the leaders of today's world as we live. How
Correct.
do they regard us? So it's going to be a bold way of self introspection, but from the eyes of someone who is going to live 100 years later. So,
Right.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
and just if you can take a pause, if the people who have joined, if they have anything particular that they wish to propose as a topic, yeah, they're more than welcome. We
Yeah,
would
I think
be nice.
one of the contacts has said that they have not been able to send their questions for some reason. They just messaged to me saying, I would like an answer on. how do brands, how do brands retain their relevance?
Okay,
Okay.
good. Take it
Why
up.
don't you take it up,
Why
Giri?
don't you take it up, Giri?
Ah, okay. Let's just step a little bit back when we discussed about the pitfalls, the three leaderships, and then see what are brands. What do brands actually do? Brands actually connect on two levels with the consumers. They connect at an emotional level, and they connect at a physical level. There are physical needs, there are emotional needs, and
Correct.
all that brands try to do is to see that, look here, both for your physical needs and emotional needs, we do have a role to play. We can help you meet those needs. So if brands have to remain relevant, they will have to look at how they can continue to meet those two needs. And for that, it boils down to this: under any situation, be it a VUCA environment, all that the brands have to do is to say, my leadership, do I have sufficient leadership qualities? Am I Are my ideas making sense in terms of the emotional needs and the physical needs? And my brand processes, are they in tune to see that those are the ones that can help the consumers meet? So I think, for brands to remain relevant, they again have to look at these three pitfalls. Where are these pitfalls? What can I do to avoid these pitfalls? It is as simple as that.
Very nice. Thank you, Giri, for that lovely answer. Yes, so you are saying that there is physical need and there is emotional need, and there are a lot of self-help books and
Uh,
online
let
materials.
Sorry, let me just tell you that question was from Padma.
Okay,
Okay.
great, great. Thank you, Padma. So, as I see it, Giri, there are a lot of self-help books and online materials and videos, as well as effective coaching and mentoring programs that deal with all these multiple facets of learning and development, and what Krish spoke about, unlearning and relearning. So, why then a specific article on loss of relevance or ones that you're working on? If you could throw some light on that.
I mean, to be absolutely straight and blunt, we are not trying to offer any help or self-help. We're just sharing insights and learnings for readers to think upon and reflect upon,
Right.
and see if we can is this something that what we see from our prism, is it what how it appears to them, and to get people thinking, and see if they can derive something and whether it applies to their situations, and at the same time learn from them, because we are just two of us in this whole being so many billions of people, where we have taken a particular view to this situation. So yeah, it
Correct.
is
Correct.
it is for us to unlearn and relearn. That's what we are doing.
Right. Giri?
It's true, and someone said, they always find it hard to, someone said that, I can't help myself to open up a self-help book, because I think I find it so difficult to do that. But
Right.
jokes apart, I think our intention is that there is a wide amount of experiences that need to be shared, fresh perspectives to be shared,
Mm.
and also to be honestly provocative about some of the new approaches. Only by sharing such perspectives, only by being provocative about some of these ideas,
Correct.
can we think of improving our situation.
Right.
And so, as Chris said, it's not for us to preach, but we certainly would like to provoke.
Correct. Very interesting take, I must say. And the way I look at it, Krish and Giri, that learning never ceases, isn't it? For me, whatever little I've learned over the last 7 years being a learning and development professional, learning is a four-stage process. And you become aware of something, you then internalize it. It is called Atmasat in Hindi. And then you have to apply what you learn. And once you have sufficiently mastered it, if you can spread it to the outside world, it helps a larger community, isn't it? And to do that, whenever you have to spread, you have to go through the first three stages: be aware, internalize, and apply. And as I look at it from whatever discussion we have had, That is what will keep you relevant, because to spread you need to upgrade as well as stay updated. So which or who do you admire as an organization or a role model when it comes to staying relevant, and why?
Uh, I wouldn't go to role model, but when I'm being more, if I look at it from a very current time bound practical situation,
Right.
we all have been using Swiggy, right?
Yes.
Particularly during this time.
Yes.
So they have come up with no contact delivery. Very simple thing, but makes a lot of, that, yeah, nobody is going to come at my doorstep and disturb it.
Correct.
And they're not allowed in the building, so they leave it at the security. You just have to tick box.
Correct.
And they've also come up with a list of health and safety approved or those who follow the guidelines. So you know that, yeah, they measure the temperature of the person who is picking up the food and who is delivering. Little things, but they are very relevant in today's situation, and it gives us more assurance with the delivery of those things, right?
Correct.
Likewise, Uber, they created a small bubble for the driver where they said that, and they also assure you that the vehicle will be sanitized after every trip. So,
Correct.
little things. They also said if you are not masked, you may possibly be refused to ride. So
Mm.
they're saying that they are following and adopting the standard. So these two, to me, stand up to me from a daily use perspective in front. Not that we have anything to do with these two organizations, but that's why I said they're not role models. But yeah, it's a good practice that they seem to have very quickly adapted and adopted both.
Giri?
Giri?
Well, interestingly, a person who inspires me when it comes to staying relevant or avoiding the laws of relevance is a very close member of my own family. She is someone who, having been born a few decades even before India got its independence, you know, she still seems to make herself very relevant to multiple generations of not just the family, but to the families of a number of her friends.
Right.
And, whether it is all those multiple generations who want to, discuss with her, not just on, things that women generally discuss, but, be it, adolescent pangs, be it, Richard Branson's travel to, space, or whether it is the political views about, the left, the far right, you know, they continuously approach her, and she is, so savvy about discussing these things. And when I think about how is it that she has made herself continue to make herself relevant, I find that she has not hesitated to keep learning and using, a number of, technologies and gadgets
Mm.
much beyond what we would normally expect a person of her age to be,
Agreed.
fluent with. So
Yes.
be it social media, be it, the gadgets of the world, she is pretty commonplace with it, and that, encourages a lot of her stakeholders, which means the multiple generations, to keep
Right.
connected with her. And
Right.
I think that, one could learn a lot of things from such a person about how to stay relevant. And Krish mentioned about unlearning and relearning. It is about how do you keep learning
Correct.
so that you stay relevant.
Super, super. So there is a lot of research that both of you have done on this subject and compiled this wonderful series of articles. Now I'm a little curious to know: are you afraid that you will become irrelevant?
Ah. Uh, in a sense, yes, I do fear,
Okay.
but not in a very bad way that I am scared. It is that good feeling of adrenaline which one gets, when one is doing something exciting, and that rush of adrenaline to, just stay one step ahead of the curve, so that you continue to remain relevant, or you just avoid becoming irrelevant, is always there. Just to, help explain what I've just mentioned, you know, I spend a lot of time trying to mentor very small business CEOs
Right.
in their growth strategies. And often today, when I think about how do I still add value to them? Let's say even 3 years, 5 years down the line, a thing that comes to my mind is today a lot of those businesses and entrepreneurs want to use blockchain technologies. They themselves are not sure. So for me, it is about how the winning strategies of yesterday and today can continue to become winning strategies tomorrow, or if they are not going to be winning strategies, how they should be adapted and then adopted by those entrepreneurs. So that fear that I have to add value to them, I should continue to add value to them, makes me, unlearn and relearn a lot of things that I have inculcated over the last 30 years. So
So,
that fear is there. I don't know
sure,
whether to call it fear, but I still think that fear is there.
sure. Krish?
Yeah, I think I second what Giri said. It is that adrenaline rush, and it is the urge to stay relevant and to learn more. I think that keeps us going. It's not fear really. And for me, I've been an assignment guy. I mean, fortunately, when I went first to the Middle East, the guy who hired me was equally crazy. He said, "Krish, write your resignation and come if you want to stay relevant." This is very important, to stay relevant professionally, or you can become one of those fat guys with, you can earn money, but you will not be relevant. So that
Hmm.
stuck with me, and I've been an assignment professional, and majority of my roles involved making myself redundant very consciously, and delivering and identifying a successor for the role and moving out.
Right, right.
Uh, so personally, yes, it has helped me reinvent myself and transform myself and keep the sauce sharpened, and uh, so that is how it has helped me.
Right.
And yeah, that's how it is.
Thank you. Wonderful. I can see another question coming up. Do you think, in view of pandemic and lockdown, etc., are corporates needed to change their vision and mission to remain relevant? I'm going to click it up and put it up on the screen so you'll get to see them. Do
Sure.
you think, in view of the pandemic and lockdown, etc., corporates need to change their vision and mission to remain relevant? Again, if who has put this, if you could put your name, it would be great.
Sure.
Yes, Giri.
Uh, Krish, do you want to take it, or shall I give a few of my thoughts first?
Please go ahead, Giri.
Yeah, see, there's this whole thing about this vision and mission thing has always been a very controversial thing. But corporates continue to have a vision. That vision can be as broad as saying that they need to provide sustainable value to their stakeholders, to the stakeholder community. The vision can never change, but sometimes the mission, which are those individual objectives that go towards seeing the vision becoming true, they may need to change if the pandemic is creating a lot of uncertainties and ambiguities and volatilities. It is not a natural thing to say, therefore every time you get into a challenge caused by the pandemic, you need to change your mission. You've got to re-look at your own current mission statements and see, are they still relevant?
Mm,
Can I make them still relevant in spite of this pandemic? Or if the pandemic is creating situations, how do I tweak my missions and still go and have my visionary goals
correct.
met? So that's the way you approach it. But the question is, in its approach itself, is very nice. It means that you need to go back and relook at your vision and mission and see what are the tweaks that you need to bring about.
Right. Krish, any take on that?
I think Giri is spot on. So it is not about changing the vision or the statements. No, that is I mean, as you said, that's a controversial zone. But to understand whether what they are delivering to the customer and how they are delivering, is it still relevant from a product and from a customer fit and from a price and value perspective, how relevant it is.
Sure.
And has the pandemic with the gaps, as we said, the leadership and the ideas and the processes, has it led to gaps? And if it has, the ability to identify and fix it so that they are able to continue to deliver value, I think that is the key. And if that means a reflection of it in the vision or in the mission and vision, so be it. You can, tweak it to
Sure.
change, but not the other way around.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for asking that question, Sunil. And thank you,
Sunil
Giri.
asked, yeah. Thank you, Sunil. That was a good
Thank you.
question. Really, really, really good one.
We are kind of coming to the end of this program. If anybody wishes to ask any more questions, please feel free to type in the comments box and I'll pick it up from there. So, one thing that comes to my mind, Giri and Krish, as we come to the conclusion of this first episode, what message would you both want to give the viewers as a parting thought?
So I would say that look at it as a positive challenge and reinvent yourself, keep unlearning and relearning. At the same time, be open and honest. Many times or sometimes we don't, we see what we want to see, right? We don't actually, we are not able to see beyond the fog. So yeah, be open and honest and acknowledge and identify the challenge, and that's the first step. If you do that, then you can tackle it. Giri, you want to add?
I think you have literally captured what I wanted to say. But I think, once people have got into the habit of unlearning and relearning, they are well on their way to success.
Super, super. So for me, the takeaway is be open and honest about the situation you're facing. The challenges will come and then they can be tackled, and keep unlearning and relearning. Thank you both so much. It was a delight talking to the two of you today, and I do hope that our audience is also taking away a lot from this program. And if any of you, this is specifically for those of you who are watching this show, if any of you want to have the entire article, feel free to write to Giri or Krish or me, and it'll be a pleasure to send it to you. You can put your email ID in the chat box or connect with us individually, and it'll be a pleasure to send it to you. I hope our paths cross, Krish and Giri, again, and I wish the two of you all the very, very best in your future endeavors.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Shankar.
Thank you, Shankar. It's really good, and yeah, I think it's good to the digital world. It anyway keeps us connected. So it's a small world, and we are in a global village. So yeah, it's good to be connected and have such programs. So thank you,
Yeah.
Shankar.
Thank you, Giri and Krish.
Thank you, Giri,
Thanks.
and
That's
thanks
all
to all
for now.
those who have joined. Sunil, Chandra, both the names at least we know now, and all the others who have joined. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for coming and being part of this and engaging with us. Thank you so much.
So that's all for now from my side. See you all with yet another episode of Heart to Heart with Shanker Viswanath very soon. Till then, I would say take care, be safe, stay healthy, and most importantly, keep checking, are you staying relevant? Bye for now. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.